Hi, and welcome to another episode of eCom at One. And today's guest is Mareike Turner, who is the Director of Operations and CX at Payability and an experienced Etsy account manager. How are you doing?
Hi, Richard. I'm doing well. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So you're just saying you're in lovely New York right now. I'm over here in the UK. Along.
Exactly. So for me, it's still early in the day, still sipping on my first coffee, but excited to be here.
Nice to have you. So I think it'd be great to kick off and tell the listeners sort of what ignited your passion for e-commerce and what got you into e-commerce.
That's a great question. I could probably talk about that all day, but I'll just give you the recap about my background and what brought me here to New York and to working with Payability these days. So I grew up in the very north of Germany, small town, 400 people. Not a lot to do there. So I decided to move to Hamburg, which is still in the north of Germany. And Hamburg is a city that is really known for, being a trading city, being a trading hub, and has a really big port. So I decided to take a job in like offline trading, basically import export industry. So my career was always in trading, not e-commerce back in the days, but
Yeah.
this offline trading, importing stuff from Asia all over the world,
Okay. Yeah.
then distributing within Europe. And then 6 years ago, I had the opportunity to move to New York, and I found a dream job at Etsy. And it was really a dream come true working for this tech company that was still in the startup mode. They had an awesome company culture and they had an awesome mission that I really learned to appreciate. And that was helping e-commerce sellers grow their businesses, grow their stores, getting their brands and their merchandise out there. And that was really what got me into e-commerce.
Wow. So
Yeah. And then
sorry, go on.
And then what brought me to Payability is really taking this passion and all the customer focus that I learned at Etsy. And then I joined Payability to elevate their customer experience and make sure that the e-commerce sellers on other marketplaces than Etsy also have a great experience and can grow their shops and their businesses.
So we've got like a double whammy today on the podcast today. So we've got this sort of CX expertise, and then this obviously on the ground experience working with Etsy sellers for several years as well. So it's like a double episode in one.
Exactly. And what was really great about working at Etsy, and I was on the account management team, so I was working with the top sellers on the platform. And I remember the first time that I met one of my sellers that I was working with, and they came to the office, and it was really, for the whole team, it was like meeting a celebrity because we saw them being featured over the blog and we had like all these great videos with them, and then meeting them in person, it was such a great experience. So we had lunch together, and she was telling us about her little online store, and she started talking. It's like, yeah, my business, it really took off, but it's still small. I have 20 employees. And we were like, you have 20 employees. That is not small. So that was really impressive. And like, I remember interactions like those were so great. And it really showed us the person behind the brand and the person behind the shop.
I just love it when you get to meet people like that. They're so sort of unassuming. Just like, oh yeah, well, we got this little business and, you know, we sell a few things online. And then it's like, what?
Exactly.
So obviously, and now you're at Payability. So tell the listeners what Payability is all about.
Yeah, Payability is a growing fintech company, and we've been founded and headquartered in New York City. We've been around since 2015, and our mission is really in line with what Etsy did. It's helping e-commerce sellers grow their business, and that is the thing that I learned from Etsy. It's like there are so many challenges when you start your online store, when you're selling online. One of that is not the coolest part about it, not the most fun part about it, but it's financing. Like, how do you get your shop to grow? How do you get money for advertising? How do you get money for inventory? And that is what Payability does and how we help e-commerce sellers grow. So we provide two financing options. One is daily cash flow, and one is growth capital. So it's called our instant access and instant advance. And that is really, this one pillar to running your online business, making sure that you have the proper financing that you need to get to the next level.
So it's not something we talk about too much, and I think it's we talk a lot about marketing and driving sales and and conversions and data and things like that on the podcast and mental health But bottom line is, cash flow and running a business are fundamentals of running any business, cash flow and that sort of that side of things. So, if I'm an e-commerce store listening to this episode right now, how could you specifically help me or them? So you say you sort of open, the ability for them to have funds in effect, but how does that work exactly? So I'm an e-com store, I'm doing, I don't know, I've got a little e-com store doing £1 million, let's say. £1 million, 100 grand a month, with 100 grand a month, 1.2 million or whatever it is a year, £1 million mark a year, dollars, pounds, whatever. Exactly how would it work with Payability then? How do you help me with cash flow?
Great question. So what you would do is you would simply go to our website. No, first your decision would be, hey, I need financing. I want to get to the next level. And this is what I spent my money on.
Yeah.
And then you would do your research and you would find Payability online. You can go to our website and you can just sign up. And then it really depends on what your goal is. Do you really want to improve your cash flow? Then you would probably sign up for our instant access program, which is accelerating your daily cash. We have really minimal requirements. So with your 100,000 pound, dollar, whatever store, you would be fine. Minimum requirements are 3 months of selling history and 2,000 in sales per month.
Yeah.
And then if you were to really bring your business to the next level and you say, hey, I have this advertising campaign that I want to invest in, or I have this great opportunity to buy more inventory, then you would apply for our instant advance which is a cash advance. So we would give you money up front and get repaid from your marketplace sale.
So the first one is based on, or they're both based on what you're selling already on Amazon.
Exactly. It's based on sales history. So that is also where we make it easy for e-commerce sellers to get this kind of financing, because if you are, especially when you're starting out and when you're a small business and you go to your bank and you explain them your e-commerce business, they're probably like, oh, what are you doing? They don't have as much expertise as we do. So we don't do credit checks. We just evaluate you based on your selling history.
So this is purely based on your history and your account, which and that is genuine because it's genuine. It's the sales that have come through your account. So there's two options there. So there's two options there, which is a smaller one or a larger sort of cash injection. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. And that is really the mission and what Payability does. And over the 5 years or 6 years that we've been in business, we have a few thousand sellers and we've provided over 3 billion in financing. So just putting that number out there, that is really what we do, what we focus on. And it's so rewarding to see these e-commerce businesses grow. And there's nothing better for me. I'm on the CX team, I run the CX team, seeing our customers succeed. That is really what we want to do.
Yeah, I mean that's an amazing idea. I think that ability that and it's it's tied into what you're selling already. So in theory, it should be affordable. You're lending an amount that is realistic rather than it's based on facts of what's been sold already. So I think cash flow is something that probably doesn't get talked about too much in the industry, and I think running any business, obviously, cash flow is absolutely key. Ultimately, I think no matter what you read, when businesses get into trouble, or ultimately maybe have to close, it's quite often cash flow is the dirty word that gets mentioned, and is quite often the reason why businesses don't succeed, because they run out of money. And that's even very successful and very great idea, businesses that have got cracking ideas, cracking products, cracking team, but unfortunately they run out of money, or the cash flow is just get squeezed. So what tips would you give for the listeners that are listening in to help them sort of manage cash flow more effectively, or anything that they can do to sort of help them when it comes to cash flow?
Great question. And there's so many aspects to it. And let me answer the question that way. It's when you start your e-commerce business out, it usually, from what I've seen, the sellers that I've been working with, is they have this great idea. They have this great opportunity to get inventory and sell it online. They don't necessarily think about it as their business from the beginning. It's more like this idea. It's oh, I'll try this out. Maybe it takes off. And then what I've seen is when you approach it that way, it then does take off, it makes it harder for you down the road. So my suggestion would always be is if you're really thinking about your idea and you think like, hey, it might take off, treat it like a business right away. It's like, have your budget planning, have your inventory management, have your sources for help. It's like, who is my accountant? How do I do my taxes? How do I do all these things? Treat it like a business right away. And then also,
Yeah.
yeah, think about financing, like get help that way.
Yeah.
And then really be smart and yeah, have a budget sheet, like make sure that you have your expenses, that you know what you're spending, that you know what is coming in,
Yeah.
analyze your inventory. And there are so many tools out there. So that is why I'm saying get help. Like you don't
Yeah.
have to reinvent the wheel, is use the community out there, use the tools
Yeah.
out there. And then regardless of what platform you're selling on, whether it's Amazon, Shopify, Etsy, use the community. Online sellers, like you know best, like they talk to each other all
Yeah.
day long. Like
Yeah.
get help that way. Join
Yeah.
these groups on Facebook. Use the resources that marketplaces put out there. It's like again, you're not alone. You don't have to
Yeah.
reinvent the wheel. Like use the resources that you got.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think, the people that are listening to this episode now, maybe ask them, okay, so are you doing a monthly cash flow forecast? And I would imagine there's a high percentage of people that are, oh, okay, no, I've heard about that. I've heard about that. And I know I should be doing it, but we don't do it, or are we doing quarterly management accounts? Are we doing monthly management accounts? Obviously, there's a lot of variation in size of e-commerce stores that are listening to this episode, but ultimately, you're trying to be successful and run a successful business. And I think far too often e-commerce store owners get wrapped up in, that it's got to sell more, got to sell more, got to sell more. But behind that, you've got to have a solid business basics in place. Cash flow will cripple a business. It's inevitable if it's not, if there's a, something was to go wrong where, a certain supplier or a certain customer, had a problem, or there's a challenge with the money side of things. Having that cash flow in place and have a real deep understanding of your cash flow is so key. The amount of times I've seen, very, very strong businesses that we've worked with in our agencies that are doing, hundreds of thousands a month, then all of a sudden it's sort of like, oh, they're closed. Why are they closing? They're doing, whatever it may be, 200 grand a month. Oh, okay. They were working on such tight margins, and they were just chasing the sales rather than understanding, the bigger picture of margins and cash flow and the profitability ultimately, making sure that profit is going back into either the bank, or if you are reinvesting it into stocks and the business and marketing, that you just always keep an eye on that, that cash flow amount to make sure that as you're growing, you're not just growing the pain or growing the issue, you're also managing the other side of things as well. So yeah, I think so many communities out there, isn't there, and sort of discussions around I think you have to admit, a real good book I've read to do with sort of money. It's a bit of an offshoot really, but it's Profit First. It's a real good book for any business I would recommend around sort of managing your cash coming into the business, and some very basic principles there about what to do with your money when you get it in the business, and making sure that you're getting paid ultimately, as an e-commerce store owner. It's all right spending, you've got the big warehouse and you're doing 1,000 orders a day and you're doing the millions in turnover, but are you getting paid? Are you getting paid? Are you getting, you're just earning a few dollars an hour because you're doing 100 hours a week or whatever it may be, so making sure you're getting paid. And there's a lot more to this, isn't there? Really, absolutely is.
Absolutely. And all great points. And that reminds me really working with these Etsy sellers, and we each, like all the account managers, had around like 100, 150 accounts. So
Wow.
sellers that we were regularly checking in with. And then we also, one thing that we did was organizing seller meetups with the sellers in the area, and then getting these sellers together and hearing them just talk about all these pain points that you're mentioning. And just like, okay, how do you do this cash flow management? Like, how do you make sure that you're actually getting paid? And that brings me back to the point, like there's so much more to it. And I have so much admiration for everyone who is running the e-commerce business, because it's more than just listing a bunch of stuff, then sitting back and waiting for it to sell. Like it's a real business. And I think that is what a lot of people are missing. They just see it as a side gig, but no, it's real. You need so much knowledge and expertise to really be successful.
Great. So obviously you are focused very much on the CX side of payability. So, what could you maybe talk the listeners through some of the things you've done to improve your own CX in the business that they might be able to think, oh, that's maybe something we could do, or something they could get some snippets from?
Great question. And yeah, that's my expertise, and I'm happy to talk about that all day long. So what I did at Payability, and
You've
I
got 10
think that
minutes.
is and I think that is something that, yeah, every business can take away. It's like, it really, if you're hiring your CX team or your support team or whatever you want to call it, make sure that you hire great people and
Yeah,
people that genuinely care and that are the right fit for this kind of role, working
yeah,
directly with your
yeah,
customers. Because that's the same thing for an e-commerce business or for Payability. Without our customers, we don't have a business. So make sure that you listen to your customer, that you hire people who can really help them. And my team is still small, but 30% of my team, they either are a small business owner themselves or they had a small business in the past. So
yeah,
just having this expertise and this background within my team really makes sure that we as a company understand what our customers want. And then what I did at Payability, and we're still this small company, we're 70 people, and we really built this company culture of relaying customer feedback in real time. So if our customers complain to us, they can know that all the stakeholders within the company will hear their feedback, the good, the bad, the ugly. So there's really no shame to it. It's like, we take all the customer feedback really, really serious, because at the end of the day, when do customers voice their concerns?
yeah,
Because they want to help you build a better product and they
yeah,
want to help you improve. Like, there's nothing worse than a customer who has a problem who doesn't tell us, who just goes silent. Like, we prefer, actually tell us, we'll make
yeah,
it better, we take
yeah,
it serious. And I think that is something that translates to every business. If you're running your e-commerce store, customers are complaining about packaging, shipping times, take that serious. Like,
yeah,
review your processes. Is there something that you can improve? Because at the end of the day, the customer complains because they care and they
yeah.
want to help you make this better.
So obviously you're getting sort of feedback on the fly, regardless, in any e-commerce store. People are saying, "Oh, I've not had this," but that's probably when there's issues have happened quite often. So obviously they are massive priority to make sure that action is taken, and that feedback is really sort of discussed within the team, and things are put in place to make sure that things don't happen again. But before we get to that point, obviously you're saying sort of asking for feedback from your customers. So what's the best way to go about that? Would it be sending questionnaires, or what sort of mechanisms do you put in place to get that feedback?
Yeah, we at a like fintech company, we have our processes in place. So we work with the ticketing system,
Yeah,
and after each interaction, customers are being surveyed. It's a
yeah,
quick survey. It's like, hey,
yeah,
are you happy with the service? And also, do you have any feedback on the product?
yeah,
So for us, we are fintech. The giving out the money is the fin part.
yeah,
Building the dashboard, building reporting, and making sure that customers have an interface that they can use and that makes sense to them. Because
yeah,
providing financing for multiple e-commerce channels can be quite complex. So we're always looking for ways to make it better, to make it simpler. And that is why we have this two-step survey in place after each interaction. And then when the customer experience team is on the phone with customers, and they're really vocal and they tell us about their pain points, and those are good opportunities to do small customer explorers. Like, okay, so what would you want to see? And
yeah,
that is really, since we are still in this startup mode and we are still a company, we can take this time to provide quality interactions, and that
yeah.
helps us build better product and be a better company.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think so often missed. We've got the sale, let's move on. Well, hang on a minute. There's obviously, you've got a lifetime value in that customer, but more than that, you can keep improving with feedback from that customer. Fantastic. So Etsy, jump back to Etsy for a minute. So it's not something I've ever, I don't know if I should say this out loud, but I don't think I've ever bought anything from.
Ooh, okay.
I know. Oh God, I said it out loud. I have said it out loud. So how does it work exactly for those that maybe are, I know we've obviously got a lot of e-com stores that are probably built on Shopify, Magento, and they know Amazon and eBay, but Etsy's probably less known, I would say. So how does it work exactly?
is certainly less known in Europe than it is in the
Yeah.
US. So here in the US, it's such a household name. They do TV ads. So
Yeah.
as a buyer, it's really when you're looking for something unique and you want to buy great handmade gift
Yeah.
and you want to support small business owners and small shops, you go to Etsy. That is
Yeah.
really your go-to address.
Hmm.
And then what really is important about Etsy, it is about the shop and it is about the brand. And you go on Etsy because you want to buy something quality made, handmade, and you want to support the business behind that. So that is for, yeah, that is why it's so important for Etsy sellers when they build their shop and they put their products out there to make sure that they tell their stories, like tell who you
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
tell why you came up with this idea. And that is why, yeah, buyers come to Etsy and why they decide to spend a little bit more. They could probably get a similar product cheaper
Yeah.
on other marketplaces, but they want to go to Etsy for this experience. And then I'm a huge Etsy customer. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I buy so much of Etsy, and just getting these beautifully packaged items in the
Yeah.
mail. Oftentimes they have a handwritten note, which is just like, it warms your heart, especially in quarantine. You haven't had nice human interactions for days, and then you get an Etsy package in the mail, and you're just like, oh, there's someone who really cares, even though I have
Yeah.
never met this person.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
just this whole culture that is so beautiful about this
The whole
marketplace.
experience buying from there, you're buying from
Exactly.
it, it's homemade, handmade, sort of family made potentially. There's a story and it's, yeah, I have to I bought a product not from Etsy recently. It was from another website, I won't name it, but as I ordered it, about 2 hours later the guy sent me like a really personalized message that was like, thank you so much. It was coming from I'm in the UK, and it was coming from I think it was coming from Poland, I think. And the gentleman wrote, really nice about, thank you so much for the order. What we're going to do is make sure that it's delivered. We're going to package it this way, and it was like a really long. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then when it arrived, there was like a big smiley face on the box that he'd obviously handwritten on. And then I opened the box, and the wrapping was just. He must have spent 15 minutes wrapping this thing. I mean, it was reasonably valuable. It was like a £200 thing that I bought. It was a clock I bought for my office. And the way it was packaged, and then there was a little handwritten note in there sort of saying, thank you once again for supporting. I was like, oh my gosh. Then he sent me another email about 3 days later, just checking you've got everything's okay. And the amount of extra care and it was like the whole experience of that clock purchase was just
I
phenomenal.
love that.
Left us such a like, wow, a real wow. Yeah. So if you're a e-com seller, you're on Shopify, Magento, doing Amazon, when should they think about jumping onto Etsy? Or is it normally they're on Etsy first, would you say? Or, is it?
It really depends on the kind of product that you're
Yeah.
selling. So Etsy has this policy. They only support, I think, yeah, they changed that they changed that a couple of years ago, but it's still this focus on handmade and
Yeah.
like small batches.
Yeah.
So if you want to sell yeah, your big batch
Yeah.
items, like Etsy is not your
Not
marketplace,
the
and
right one.
really it comes with telling your story, telling your brand. But what I've seen from experience is every online seller, they have kind of their marketplace where they want to start out their idea, and then as they grow, at one point you will need to expand. So it's probably not a bad idea, if you have like the inventory and if you're really serious about your e-commerce business, try different marketplaces, try how your items do on Etsy, try how they do on Amazon, build
Yeah.
your own store with Shopify, and then like really build out your channel strategy, and don't put all your eggs in one basket, because that
Yeah.
is also something that could happen. One of the platforms could shut your shop down for whatever reason,
Yes.
and then you don't want to like just trust this one marketplace and just want to build your business on this one channel. But this multi-channel shop strategy is really what I've been seeing
Yeah.
that is like really
Yeah.
successful.
So with your time at Etsy, and obviously that experience as a buyer as well, by the sound of it, not just working with them and helping sellers, but what would you say are any sort of secret tips that you've come across to help sell more on the Etsy channel, on their platform? Is there anything? Obviously, you said you work with, or account managers work with, literally hundreds of clients per account manager there. Any specific little nuggets that the listeners could take away?
I think that goes for all e-commerce channels, but having quality pictures of your items is the most important thing, because that is the first thing that the buyer is seeing, right? Your picture, and then using your keywords and doing some analysis on keywords, like what are buyers looking for? How can you optimize your keywords? And then also thinking about, because what is nice about a marketplace like Etsy, it gives you exposure to all these buyers, but then still there's probably more items like yours out there. How do you stand out, and how do you get your items to the front page? And with that, it's also something like, think about investing in advertising and just playing around with it. And Etsy has this tool called promoted listings. So you can promote your listings, get them on the front page for certain keywords, and really do your research, or even, again, get help. Reach out to the Etsy support. They have a lot of resources in place. Just, it's a lot of trial and error, I would say, but starting with quality pictures, of course, quality items, quality customer support, and then telling your story, bringing your brand out there. And then for marketing, there are even the free versions of build an Instagram page, build a Facebook page, promote your listings that way, and tell stories around it. Don't just repost the listings that you have, but get pictures from buyers, show your items in action, and really tell this story, and show, like, give a feeling, like. And that is what Etsy is all about. When you see these great handmade products, beautiful jewelry or baby items or stuff like that, like telling this whole story, and that is what sells.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that's a great point to end on. I think there's been a lot of great takeaways there. Now, I always like to finish every episode with a book recommendation. Do you have a specific book that you recommend to our listeners?
I have my favorite book that I'm happy to recommend, and I think it's, these days, it's more relevant than ever. We've all been more or less quarantined for over a year, and I think we've all been at this place, or at this point in our days, like, every day looks the same. I don't have a commute anymore. I can't go to the gym. I can't meet my friends for a certain period of time. What do I do with my day? How do I structure my day? And one book that I love to reference in situations like this is The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And it really goes into how habits are created in your brain, how you can use them to structure your day, and how you can really trick yourself into doing things that you always wanted to do and always wanted to try out. And that is just a good reminder whenever I have these days, like, is today Thursday or Tuesday? I have no idea. Every day is the same. Think about that, and really be mindful and intentional about how you spend your day and how you structure your day, and carve out time for the things that really give you energy and bring you through this crazy,
that's a fantastic
period of time.
Thank you. That's a real fantastic bit of advice, as well as a book recommendation there. That's fantastic. Yeah, Power of Habit. We'll link that up in the show notes. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. The guys that are listening in, if they want to find out more about yourself, what's the best way to do that? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Find me on LinkedIn, Mareike Turner. That is the nice thing about my name. There is only one with that name. Find me, hit me up.
There is only one, Mareike Turner. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll speak again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.